Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to SD Property for the opportunity of being here to share with you a brief insight on investing in the Penang property market. Now, we all know that unlike KL and unlike Iskandar, the Penang story is not frequently told. So, because of that, I am very delighted to be here to play perhaps a little ambassadorial for the Penang property market. Now, to start off with, I will be, within the next half an hour, looking at the Penang economy with a short introduction, followed by the Penang property market, property prices and indices, and of course on foreign investment interests, and perhaps also to touch a little bit on what I consider to be the game changer for Penang and the numerous opportunities for investment. Now, let's look at Penang. Penang is generally in the center of the world. All right? We are quite blessed to have the 76 million population surrounding Penang, primarily from southern Thailand, northern Sumatra, and of course the various states in Peninsular Malaysia from the north. And this will in turn translate into opportunities for trade and commerce, particularly for tourism as well, and of course within the various sectors of trade and commerce. Now, as you can see, Penang lies to the north of Kuala Lumpur, and within that particular location, we are considered to be the second largest conurbation in Peninsular Malaysia, and therefore we present an opportunity for playing a major role as a major commercial hub. Now, if you look at Penang being connected to the rest of the world, yes, we are very well connected. As you can see, we have got 84 flights between Penang and Singapore, but not just that, we are also directly connected to Bangkok, where you can then easily from there fly to any parts of the Northern Hemisphere. And apart from Bangkok, we are also connected to Hong Kong. And more importantly, we are connected to the various parts of Indonesia, which is a very large market for Penang. Now, from a geography point of view, if you look at the size of Penang in relation to Singapore, we are basically about less than half the size of Singapore. But unlike Singapore, where you don't have any part of Johor, Penang is fortunate enough to have Province Wellesley, which is basically the land on the mainland, as we will call it. And if you combine the total land area, we are basically around another 40% larger than Singapore. So we are actually fortunate in that sense. And because of the fact that we now have land being a very scarce resource at the disposal of planning from a Penang perspective, we do have that strategic advantage to also look at from an investment point of view. Now, population-wise, if you look at the population of Penang, roughly about 1.6 to 1.7 million, and in terms of Penang being a highly urbanized area, of course, the majority of the people live in the Northeast District, which is basically around this part here, the Northeast District. This is the Northeast District. And the second most populated region would be Province Wellesley Central, which is this part here, Province Wellesley Central. Then, of course, followed by Southwest District, where the airport is, and then, of course, Seberang Perai, Province Wellesley North, and finally, Province Wellesley South. So that's how the population is being distributed. Now, in terms of population growth, roughly around 2% over the years. And now let's look at the economy. Now, the Penang gross regional product is founded on two very important primary sectors, which is basically manufacturing and services, both occupying roughly about quite close in terms of percentages to the total gross regional product. Now, unemployment is less than 2%, which means to say there's full employment in Penang. Today, there's actually a shortage of talent. So for those of you who may wish to come and work in Penang, there are always employment opportunities, and of course, there are also business opportunities as well. All right? Now, if you compare that with Malaysia, the manufacturing sector accounted for only 1/4, whereas in Penang, we are almost 50%. So therefore, Penang's economy is founded very much on both the twin pillars of what I call manufacturing and services. And I will go into detail later on as to which of the component of services form the bulk of the services sector. Now, I have 5 points that I'd like to share with you here. Number one is that Penang has been identified as the top 10 dynamic industrial clusters where we have a proven track record of manufacturing success over the last 40 years. And apart from that, of course, what is important is that we are voted as the 8th most livable city in Asia. And lately, we have been voted as the best place to retire as well. All right? Now, we know that there is a correlation between talent and livability is a major factor in Penang, and therefore we see a lot of people choosing to live in Penang under the various initiatives, including the Malaysia My Second Home program. Now, the next point, of course, is Georgetown, which is very unique. It is a living heritage, has been inscripted by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, where it's a real, where it's a place where you do see people living in it, all right? So as that inscription in 2008 has, to a certain extent, brought in more tourists and more visitors to Penang. And then, of course, a lot of people come to Penang for many reasons, and one of the reasons, of course, is food, all right? Street food, your char kway teow, your curry mee, and your Hokkien mee, and we voted as the top 10 best street food in 2012. And finally, and of course, and not the least, is that Penang has been voted as one of the top 8 islands in the world that you must visit before you die. Okay, so I've given you many reasons why you should look at Penang from an investment perspective. Now, if you look at the key industries in Penang, as I shared with you earlier, primarily manufacturing is very important. And within manufacturing, of course, we have the E&E, the electrical and electronic, which includes semiconductors. And Penang, of course, as you know, is also known as the Silicon Valley of the East, and we have earned our ranking by putting a lot of hard work. And of course, apart from E&E sector and the ICT, LED, medical devices, aerospace, avionics, and solar PV are also equally promoted. And among the many multinationals that have made their presence felt in Penang includes a significant number from Singapore. Now, apart from the manufacturing sector, the medical and health tourism sector is also an important sector, including education, hospitality, convention, of course, property and logistics. Now, out of these 6 sectors, the medical tourism sector today in Penang has achieved a huge milestone in terms of, if you look at the total national revenue of receipts from medical tourism alone, Penang's contribution accounted for more than 2/3. So you can see that basically healthcare is big business in Penang, and people in Penang generally, of course, have the advantage of living in an area which is considered to be having the right kind of ambience for living. Therefore, we have this high livability index as a result of thanks to the great medical and healthcare system that we have in Penang today. So 2/3 of total national revenue comes from Penang, and that grew between 15 to 20% last year. And if you were to look at all the supplier of private medical healthcare, you'll find that every single institution has an increase in terms of facilities, in terms of the number of specialists in Penang, and therefore you see new buildings being acquired to facilitate that particular process. So it's big business in Penang, and of course we do have people who come on a regular basis for this purpose in Penang, and I've been asked, I've been told one of the reasons why they come to Penang for medical tourism is that in the past they used to be going to KL, Malacca, including Singapore, and they realized that a lot of those specialists are actually all Penang lang. All right, all right. Just a show of hand. How many people are here? How many people here are from Penang? Can I have a show of hand? Ah, it's good. We have a good number of Penang people, and Malaysians. How many Malaysians? Okay, good. And happy Merdeka. All right. Now, if you look into Penang as a manufacturing hub, we have 40 years of success. We used to be, when we first started, we used to be a sweatshop where the factories are very hot and you'll be sweaty all over the places. But today, we are no longer a sweatshop. We are basically a smart shop where where basically you have seen us move up the value chain, and innovation, creativity will be the order of the day. And that, of course, translates into higher income. Then this will also tell you that more than 300 recognizable brands from the multinationals have made their presence felt in Penang, and these are the very people that help us to bring Penang to progress to the next level. And of course, Penang, as you know, has got 8 international schools with various curriculum, and this has indirectly also promoted Penang to families of expatriates who wish to consider Penang as a hub for employment and business opportunities. All right, I mentioned about MM2H earlier. Now let's look at this map of Penang. If you can see from this map on the island where it's shaded in yellow, that is basically the areas which are urbanized, and that's the area which I call the eastern foreshore that see a lot of development taking place right from the north right down to the south where the second bridge is. And we always like to call the second bridge as the third link, because don't forget, the first link between Penang and Province Wallis is basically the ferry, the good old ferry, all right, which is at one point in time used to be far more common for people to travel by way of the ferry. And of course, today we have the first bridge, which connects Penang on the mainland with the mainland. And then, of course, today we now have a newly completed bridge, which is increasingly become more and more popular for logistics businesses and people now. And of course, if you look at Province Wallis, the area which is shaded areas in yellow are those areas which are also considered to be an area that is to a certain extent highly urbanized as well. And this is where the state development corridors are found. It's basically a repeat of the earlier map that I showed you. But what I'd like to show you here is that the island is where tourists come. And the island is where is more popular with tourists. And of course, if you look in the map here, the inner city of Georgetown is a very popular tourist area, more so thanks to UNESCO inscription of Georgetown as a World Heritage Site. And of course, we have the traditional areas like Gurney Drive. I'm quite sure many of you who have been to Penang would have actually gone to Gurney Drive, and you will have probably stayed in G Hotel maybe. I'm not promoting G Hotel, but perhaps you may have stayed in G Hotel, and then you could have shopped in Gurney Plaza. All right, and perhaps you would then have gone to Batu Ferringhi for a beach outing. And finally, perhaps you might have actually gone to Muka Head or Pantai Aceh, where we had the famous, within close and inverted comma, nudist colony, if you've heard the news lately, all right? Okay. Now, let's look at the property market. Now, in terms of overall volume of transaction, they have increased substantially between 2007 and 2011, as you can see the pattern of the chart here. And in terms of what you see in Penang is that there was actually a sharp increase between 2011 and 2011, 2010 and 2011, and 2011 being the peak of the property market from a volume perspective, being an all-time high. And it's also the same for Malaysia, as you can see. In 2011, we saw about 430,000 transactions across the board all over Malaysia, and the same applies to Penang as well in 2011. Now, from a total value point of view, you will see that in the case of Malaysia, notwithstanding the deep total value of transactions have continued to rise since recovering from the GFC in 2009. And in terms of what you see in Penang, the pattern is also quite the same, all right, also quite the same. Now, from a total volume point of view, just like in Singapore, I believe, the major component of market basically is made up of residential. In Malaysia, it's 65%. In Penang, it's 73%, all right? And of course, followed by commercial. Now, from a total value point of view, the residential sector is still the predominant sector, occupying 53% versus 47% in Malaysia. And in terms of market size in relation to the whole country, we are less than 10% in Penang. Now, from a total existing supply point of view, if you look at this particular pie chart, you will see that the green portion is basically where the landed properties are found. And the percentage on a statewide basis is only merely 36%, but on the island, only 17% of the total supply comes from the landed property segment, whereas the rest are all under strata titles. So therefore, in this particular case, as you can see, if there is any landed property for sale in Penang, usually it only take a very short time for you to sell because there's actually very strong demand for landed property. A lot of people somehow or other seem to gravitate towards investing in landed property as a first preference. New supply, we're looking at, on the island, about 62,000 units coming on stream. But nevertheless, I must qualify that these 62,000 are not units that you can realize tomorrow because they're still the subject of many planning regulations, all right? Now, if you look at the market as a whole, as you know, the market is made up of both the secondary market and the primary market. The primary market constitutes less than 20%, the secondary market about close to 80% for nationwide, as well as for the state of Penang. And in fact, today, if you look into new supply coming into the market, you will find that housing stock growth is diminishing. And based on a recent study by Penang Institute, which is basically a think tank in Penang, is that there is a shortage of new stock in the market. And because of this, as a result of demand outstripping supply, the conclusion here is that prices are expected to rise even further, notwithstanding all the various cooling measures that you hear of, all right? Now, in terms of pricing distribution, what I'd like to share here is that on the island itself, more than 75% of the total stock are houses which are below $500,000 ringgit, all right? And those which comes between 500,000 to 1 million is about 17%, and above 1 million is 8%. Now, of course, different market segment has got different demand pattern. Now, there is actually a lot of upgraders coming from those below 500,000 to buy better homes in Penang. So therefore, if you've got a home that is priced between 500,000 to 1 million, they sell very, very quickly, all right? And for those even above $1 million, they also do sell quite well, especially for terrace houses, where essentially in one of those better areas, you'll be looking at anything in the region of plus minus 2 million ringgit each. In Province Wellesley, you don't see many houses more than 1 million ringgit. In fact, those between 500,000 to 1 million only constitute a mere 4%. By and large, 96% are all below 500,000 in Province Wellesley. In fact, there's a huge disparity in prices between Penang Island and Province Wellesley. In fact, you can only buy a shoebox, if you call using your terminology in Singapore, for basically in the region of, say, plus minus about 1 million. And for 1 million, can you imagine you have got a wide area of choices in Province Wellesley. So that goes to show you how much, what is the disparity ratio like between Penang Island and, of course, Province Wellesley. You know, a lot of people living in the northern region, including those from Seberang, from Province Wellesley, have always felt the need to own a home in Penang Island, all right? It's just like somebody living in Johor proudly exclaiming to the whole world and, of course, his friends that I have a home in Singapore. That kind of mindset as well, all right? So therefore, because of that, Penang is very, very popular in terms of having a home as well. Residential transaction above 1 million has been growing. As you are probably aware, there's a control on the minimum price threshold for foreigners to own property today in Penang. For landed property, you have to buy one which is considered to be 2 million and above. For strata title, 1 million and above, all right? Now let's look at the property prices and indices. Now, if you look at the all house price index, the growth of houses in terms of capital value in Malaysia is fairly gradual, unlike some other sovereign countries where they are far more volatile. But nevertheless, if you look at the compound annual growth rate, Penang is higher than the whole country, but slightly lower than KL. And this is actually the pattern for all house types. But if you look at the Penang state alone, in terms of housing type, both the high-rise and terraces are doing extremely well, if you take a more than 10-year period into account. Then, of course, terrace houses on the island grow faster than the one in Province Wellesley. So, which means they say there are actually opportunities for you to buy basically cheaper homes in Seberang Prime. Now, from a high-rise point of view, the same pattern as well. Now, let's look at foreign investment interest. If you look at foreign investment interest, generally from a foreigner perspective, the total volume of transaction coming from strictly foreigners is less than 10% for Penang. Of course, that number is much larger in KL, where you'll be looking at roughly slightly less than 20%. Johor also about 15%. For Penang, it's less than 10%. But really what is important is to recognize that we have a very huge, what I call the Penang diaspora. The Penang people working in Singapore, the Penang people working in Hong Kong, in the United States, in Australia, and earning big bucks, all right, and good money. And therefore, when they come back to Penang, especially during Cheng Beng, the All Souls Day, especially during Chinese New Year, where it's pretty quiet in Kuala Lumpur because everybody gets out of KL, but everybody from KL comes to Penang, because most of them somehow or other comes from Penang, you'll find that this is actually the best time to sell homes. And of course, when you have somebody earning renminbi, Sing dollars, when they come back to Penang, they tend to feel very, very rich. And of course, inevitably, property investment is always a topic at dinner times. Okay. Now, let's look at the game changer for Penang. Now, if you look at the state of Penang, comprising mainland, island, and Province Wellesley, what is really key and important is a sense of connectivity. A sense of connectivity between people and places, and more importantly, between people and people. And therefore, because of that, we will then be able to bring in greater vibrancy to the whole economy. All right, and just like Singapore, which you have a very strong and efficient transportation infrastructure, we hope to see that in Penang in due course. And that is already happening. And so perhaps in terms of timing, there is nothing better than buying, or there's nothing than consider to buy or to invest in Penang right now from a timing perspective, because infrastructure and property growth and values do have a very close relationship. Now, so we're also hoping that basically between the north part of Province Wellesley to the southern part, it will also be equally well connected. And Penang, as you can see, I mentioned to you earlier, we have got 76 million people living in the region. And of course, we are also the second largest conurbation in the north. So we're able to, we are also seen as a center of employment in the northern region. And therefore, it's actually important that connectivity becomes the order of the day. Now, if you look at this particular map, what I'd like to show you is that up in the north, we have a tunnel that is now being proposed through a PPP of 6.3 billion, and that's going to be funded by the state. And of course, towards the south, we have the bridge, which is already completed. So therefore, in the north, you have the tunnel. In the south, you have the bridge. And this will obviously translate into the multiplier effects from a local economy point of view. All right? Now, for those of you who have not been on a bridge, you should actually try one of these days to drive across it. It's really, really very lovely. Now, from a public transport strategy, is very important. It's an important key. It's also a game changer for Penang. And we see that a fully integrated system will bring a lot of value. And this is what you see right now in terms of what is like on the present. And in terms of another 15 years or so, we do have some major road hierarchy planning in place. Basically, this is what you see down here. And of course, public transport network throughout the whole state, and with highways being widened, new intersections, and upgrading existing junctions. And of course, we also have a double-track ETS, they call it a high-speed rail service, of course faster than Kereta Api Tanah Melayu, all right, KTM. Then, of course, it's now under construction, as you can see from this picture. And we have a great public transport from a buses point of view, LRT and trams, bus rapid transit, trains, and sea transport. We think that Penang will see a lot of changes from that perspective when people and places are connected, and more importantly, like I said earlier, when people and people are connected. All right. Now, to the north, Penang Central is going to be a major transportation hub, and this is what it's going to look like. There's another visuals of it, and finally, this is what you see right now. This is at the Penang port that's now under construction. And of course, down to the south, which is, you can see it from this small little map down here. This is what we are looking at, a place called Batu Kawan. It means, it is translated in English, it means friendly stone. All right, friendly stone, Batu Kawan, all right? And it's made up of a couple of thousand of, about close to 6,000 acres of land with basically leisure, entertainment, medical, education, tourism, and IT park in mind. There's an MOU recently signed between PDC, Temasek, and EDS. They will develop an international technology park and a business process outsourcing center. And the other projects that have been announced are also a premium shopping center, all right, followed by logistics and a new university. And of course, IKEA is going to make its presence felt, and the signing ceremony is going to take place, I think, next week in Penang. All right, and it's going to be built on 245 acres of land. And of course, what is also equally significant in Penang is that Penang has never been known as a convention center in the past, but with the completion of SPICE, not Spice Girls, Spice, all right, okay, and the Penang Waterfront Convention Center scheduled for completion in 2016, we think that there will be more visitors to Penang, and that will have some major implications for real estate as well. Now, if I look at the opportunities for investment, and I would probably think that the 4 quadrants of real estate investing will still apply, but although you may generally look into direct investment in the private market, you can also look into the possibility of both debt and equity being 2 major areas where you can get involved with, due to the fact that there are numerous projects that are now made available from investment, from a funding point of view, from a development point of view, or even purely from an investment point of view. Now, I also like to add that from the housing market point of view, although from the numbers it will appear that we are at equilibrium, I would dare say that there is a disequilibrium in terms of what is required in the market versus what is available in terms of stock in the market. As you can see, I mentioned to you earlier, more than 75% of the properties in Penang from the residential sector are below 500,000, all right? And that means there's a lot of opportunity for upgrading. So therefore, new projects which are well conceptualized in the right location will continue to draw investor as well as consumer. So if you look at the pie as a whole, the consumption market, although we may think it's at equilibrium, but given the fact that Penang has a very young population and household formation is basically quite rapid, in fact, it's growing faster than population growth, and with a smaller household sizes, there will be demand for better homes in Penang. On the investment side, nobody knows what is the market size like, but I know it's definitely huge, because at every other road shows, even today, you do see a big crowd in Penang, all right? So opportunities, generally, as I mentioned, residential, commercial, and industrial. And of course, within this market segment, the opportunities can come in many forms. As I mentioned to you from the map which you have seen earlier, you remember the gray portion, the yellow portion and the green portion. The green portion is where you can probably buy an orchard land for less than 50 ringgit per square foot, and you compare that with development land value, it can range from as low as 500 ringgit per square foot to as high as 1,005 ringgit per square foot. So you can see the huge arbitrage opportunities between orchard land that may in future have potential for being converted into development land, and you can see that the values will just shoot up like nobody's business later on. All right. Now, within this whole spectrum of the various sub-market, given the fact that I have limited time, I would like to share with you one particular segment which I think is viable, and this is where I would think that you can perhaps consider from an investment point of view. Of course, investment also depends on your time horizon as well. I would need to qualify. Now, I have mentioned earlier that Georgetown was awarded a as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, and this has major implication. If you look at Georgetown, basically the one that is shaded with the red color is where Georgetown is located, the inner city of Georgetown, and there's a lot of I would say a lot of sentiments for those areas, both from investment as well as from a commercial point of view. Now, in terms of the total number of buildings which are considered to be conservation homes or conservation shophouses in your terminology, we have less than 5,000 units. All right, less than 5,000 units. And out of these 5,000 units, you will see that most of them cannot be sold for one reason or the other, because they belong to the Khu Gongxi. Probably you have heard of the Khu Gongxi, the Chia Gongxi, the Tan Gongxi, and of course the various Wakaf land that cannot be sold because they belong to that, they come under that category. So the total number that can be found in the private market is basically small in number. So whatever conservation home opportunity that comes out of the market, it gets sold very, very quickly. And I can name many Singapore-based companies that have participated and have invested and have laughed all the way to the bank because they have already made notional substantial gain. And I will show you what's the growth like at a later stage. Now, styles of shophouses in Penang, quite, I suppose, not very far away from what you see in Singapore. All right, some of the conservation homes which are better known in Singapore has also attracted a lot of attention. I will give you an example of a hotel, of a property called the Penaga Hotel. This is what it looks like. All right, when we first sold it by tender, we acted for a trustee in Singapore, and eventually what happened was the buyer turned it into this, and then this is what you see that is taking place today, and this is how it looks like. So maybe perhaps on your next trip to Penang, you might want to try a night there. All right. And this is how it looks, the next visuals, followed by this. Another one called Mantri Mills is for today's flashbacker. I don't know why they call it flashbacker, all right? Penang is quite well known for all this nowadays, huh? Okay. And this is how it looks like of the interiors. And these are all real interiors that are not artist impressions. And of course, the other one is Notting Mills. This is how it looks like as well. Luxury boutique accommodation. Followed by 7 terraces, which have also done very well. And of course, from a volume perspective, for interest in those, I would call them pre-war heritage or conservation homes, the volume has actually started to pick up since 1999 after the Rent Act was repealed and abolished. All right, started to pick up, as you can see from here. The volume has actually gone up, but then because not many supply is in the market, usually it does not take too long for a unit that is being reasonably priced to get sold. Now, more importantly, from that perspective, I think what is more important is the next chart, which will tell you the price index, which has been growing around close to 15%. Now, this 15% is over a period of 10 years. And I have not taken into account like stock prices. In terms of growth, you have a movement of stock prices plus dividend yield. So I've actually taken away that portion, which is dividend yield or rental income. And just based on the movement of prices, the CAGR growth is around 15%. Can you possibly imagine if you were to invest in real estate and you have a CAGR growth of 15% over a 10-year period? I think by any measure of standard, it is indeed very, very impressive. All right? So this is something that you might want to consider. And of course, this is my last slide. So before I end, if you like to know more about Penang, where's the best place to eat, where you should shop, where you should stay, I have brought with me 2 colleagues from Penang all the way, and I will introduce them to you. Max over here, all right, he's from Penang. And then of course, right at the back there, I have Daniel. All right. So you have got 2 more friends in Penang, including me. You have got 3, all right? So if you want to find more about where to eat, where to shop, we are the right guy that you should speak to. So with that, thank you very much.